The distress ping had been repeating for 6 hours before Danny Kowalski finally decided to investigate. His salvage scanner had picked it up while he was elbow-deep in a faulty coolant system, and he had ignored it at first. Distress signals in the outer zones were usually traps. Pirates loved using them to lure in soft-hearted fools. But this signal was different. The frequency was wrong, not wrong in a dangerous way, but wrong in a way that made Danny's engineer brain itch. It was like hearing a song played in the wrong key, close enough to recognize but strange enough to notice. Danny wiped the coolant from his hands and pulled up the scanner display. The signal came from a debris field about 2 hours away. Standard protocol said he should report it to the nearest station and move on. Let someone else handle it. That was the smart thing to do. Danny had not done the smart thing in years. His ship, a small repair vessel he called the Wrench, was not built for exploration. It was built for fixing things. Danny had spent the last 4 years flying between stations, taking whatever repair jobs paid well enough to keep him fed and fueled. He liked the work. Machines were simple. They broke, you fixed them, and they worked again. No complications, no feelings, no guilt. He set course for the debris field. The ship appeared on his sensors 30 minutes before he could see it with his own eyes. When he finally got close enough to look, Danny let out a low whistle. The vessel was unlike anything in his recognition database. The hull had a strange shimmer to it, almost like scales. The design curved in ways that human ships never did, organic and flowing. It looked less like something built and more like something grown. No lights, no movement, no response to his hails. Danny docked with the vessel carefully, his magnetic clamps finding purchase on a section of hull near what looked like an airlock. The seal was good, which surprised him. Whatever had happened to this ship, the hull was intact. He suited up and stepped through. The interior was dark except for the weak flicker of emergency lighting. The air was thin but breathable, which meant life support was running on backup power. Danny switched on his helmet light and moved forward slowly. The corridor walls had the same organic quality as the exterior. They curved smoothly, no sharp corners anywhere. The floor beneath his boots felt almost soft, like walking on thick rubber. Everything about this ship felt alive, even though Danny knew it was just advanced materials he had never seen before. He found the engineering section after 10 minutes of careful exploration. The damage here was obvious. Control panels had been smashed, power conduits had been cut. Wiring had been ripped out and scattered across the floor. This was not damage from an accident or attack. This was sabotage. Someone had deliberately killed this ship from the inside. Danny knelt beside a destroyed console and examined the cuts. Clean edges. Someone had used tools, not weapons. They had known exactly what they were doing. Why would a crew destroy their own ship? He connected his portable generator to the main power grid and started running diagnostics. The ship's systems were still there, just disconnected. He could bring most of it back online with a few hours of work. The question was whether he should. While the diagnostic ran, Danny explored further. He found the crew quarters empty, beds still made, personal items still in place. The galley had food that had gone bad, sitting untouched on plates. Whatever had happened here, it had happened fast. Then he noticed the scratches. Long marks gouged into the walls, running along the corridor. Not random damage. These were deliberate, like someone had been dragged along the wall while clawing at it. Danny followed them with his light, watching them grow deeper and more frantic. They led toward the cargo hold. Danny's hand moved to the small cutting tool on his belt. It was not a weapon, but it was the closest thing he had. He should leave. He should go back to his ship, file a report, and let someone else deal with this. That was the smart thing. The cargo hold doors were sealed. Not just closed, but welded shut from the outside. Someone had wanted to make sure whatever was inside stayed inside. Danny stood in front of those doors for a long time. He thought about his old crew. He thought about the choices he had made and the ones he had failed to make. He thought about 4 years of running from his own guilt. A sound came from behind the doors, soft, weak, like something crying. Danny had heard that sound before. not from machines, which was all he usually dealt with these days. This was something alive, something in pain, something dying. He pulled out his cutting tool and started to work. The welds were thick, but Danny was patient. He had cut through worse. 20 minutes later, the last seal gave way, and the doors slid open with a groan of stressed metal. The smell hit him first, waste and fear and something sour. His light swept across the cargo hold, expecting monsters, expecting danger, expecting something terrible. He found children. 7 of them huddled together in the far corner of the hold. Different species, different sizes, different colors. A reptilian girl with blue scales. A small furry creature with huge eyes. A massive stone-skinned boy who could not have been older than 12 despite his size. Others he could not identify. They flinched away from his light, raising thin arms to shield their faces. They were dirty and starving and terrified. Danny lowered his light slowly. He raised his hands to show they were empty. He had come to repair a ship. He had found something else entirely. None of the children moved. They pressed against each other in the corner like a single frightened creature with too many eyes. Danny counted them again. 7, all young, all watching him with the same expression. They expected him to hurt them. Danny had seen that look before. Years ago, during his military service, he had helped evacuate a colony under attack. The survivors had worn the same expression. Trust broken so completely that kindness became just another threat. He lowered himself slowly to one knee, making himself smaller, less threatening. His helmet light was too bright, so he dimmed it until the cargo hold fell into soft shadow. Nobody spoke. Danny was not sure any of them could. The reptilian girl was the first to move. She shifted slightly, placing herself between Danny and the smaller children behind her. A protector. Even starving, even terrified, she was ready to fight for them. Danny respected that. He reached into his suit's emergency pouch and pulled out a ration bar, standard issue, bland and nutritious. He placed it on the floor in front of him and pushed it gently toward the group. Then he sat back on his heels and waited. The furry creature with the large eyes moved first. It darted forward, grabbed the bar, and retreated so fast Danny barely saw it happen. The creature sniffed the bar, took a tiny bite, and then began eating rapidly. Danny pulled out another bar, and another. He had 6 in his emergency supply, and he gave them all. The children descended on the food like they had not eaten in days. They probably had not. While they ate, Danny studied the cargo hold. Chains hung from the walls, some still attached to cuffs designed for wrists of various sizes. The floor had drainage grates built into it. This space had been designed to hold living cargo, people who were not meant to arrive at their destination healthy or comfortable. A trafficking vessel, Danny's stomach turned. He had heard stories about operations like this. Slavers who moved through the outer zones, taking children from unprotected colonies and selling them to whoever paid. The stories said the buyers were sometimes worse than the slavers themselves. The reptilian girl finished her ration bar and looked at Danny with slightly less fear than before. Her mouth moved, but the sounds she made were not in any language his translator could recognize. Danny tapped his helmet, indicating the translator unit. He shook his head. The girl paused, then tried again in a different language. This time, Danny caught fragments. "You crew?" "No," Danny said slowly, letting his translator work. "I'm not crew, I'm from another ship. I heard your distress signal." The girl processed this. Her eyes moved to the burned corpse that Danny now noticed in the opposite corner of the hold. A body he had missed in the darkness. One of the traffickers, from the look of the uniform. "We did that," the girl said. Her voice held no apology. "I understand," Danny said, and he did. "Others ran, locked us in, broke ship so no one comes." The girl's broken common tongue was improving as she remembered the words. "Wanted us to die with them." Danny thought about the sabotaged systems. The crew had destroyed their own vessel rather than let their cargo be rescued. Maybe they feared punishment from whoever they worked for. Maybe they were just cruel. It did not matter now. How long have you been in here? The girl looked at the others, then back at Danny. Many days, lost count. Danny stood slowly. The children flinched, but the reptilian girl held her ground. I'm going to get more food, Danny said, and water. Then I'm going to fix this ship enough to move it. Do you understand? The girl translated for the others. The stone-skinned boy rumbled something in a deep voice. The furry creature chittered rapidly. The girl listened, then turned back to Danny. Why help? It was a fair question. Danny had no good answer for it, at least not one that would make sense to a child who had learned that adults only wanted to hurt her. Because you need it, he said finally. That's enough reason. He walked back through the corridor toward his ship. The scratch marks on the walls looked different now. He could picture one of the children breaking free, fighting back, causing enough chaos for the crew to panic. A small victory that had cost them everything. Danny gathered supplies from the wrench. Food packs, water containers, blankets, medical supplies. He loaded everything onto a small cart and hauled it back to the cargo hold. The children had not moved from their corner, but when they saw the supplies, something changed in their faces. Not trust, not yet, but maybe the beginning of hope. The reptilian girl helped him distribute the food and water. She moved efficiently, making sure the smaller ones ate first. Danny noticed she took nothing for herself until everyone else had something. What's your name? Danny asked. The girl made a sound his translator could not process. She saw his confusion and tried again. In your words, closest is blue for my color. She gestured at her scales. Danny nodded. I'm Danny. Danny, Blue tested the word. You fix ships. Yes. Can you fix this one? Danny looked around the cargo hold, at the chains on the walls, at the drainage grates, at the burned body in the corner. I can fix it enough to fly, he said, but this ship is broken in ways my tools can't repair. Blue seemed to understand. She looked at the other children, then back at Danny. Where will you take us? Danny had been avoiding that question. The honest answer was that he did not know. Turning them over to authorities meant bureaucracy, separation, possibly sending them back to places that no longer existed or people who had sold them in the first place. Let me think about that, Danny said. First, let's get you somewhere safer than a cargo hold. He held out his hand to Blue. She stared at it for a long moment. Then slowly she took it. Moving 7 traumatized children from a cargo hold to a proper living space took longer than Danny expected. Not because of the physical distance, but because every shadow made them freeze. Every unexpected sound made them huddle together. They had spent too long learning that the universe wanted to hurt them. Danny led them to the crew quarters he had found earlier. The beds were sized for the traffickers, too large for most of the children, but they were clean and soft. Better than chains on a cold floor. Blue helped translate his instructions to the others. The stone-skinned boy, who Danny had started calling Boulder in his head, carried the 2 smallest children who were too weak to walk. The furry creature with the big eyes, who Danny thought of as Pip, refused to let go of Danny's leg and had to be gently pried off several times. Once the children were settled with food and water within reach, Danny got to work on the ship. The sabotage was thorough but not professional. The traffickers had been cruel, not clever. They had smashed obvious systems and cut visible wires, but they had missed the deeper infrastructure. Danny spent 3 hours reconnecting power conduits and bypassing damaged controls. By the time he was done, the ship had basic propulsion, life support, and navigation. It would fly barely, but it would fly. He returned to the crew quarters to find the children asleep. All except Blue, who sat near the door with her back against the wall, watching. You should rest, Danny said quietly. Someone has to watch, Blue's voice was flat. Always someone watching, so others can sleep safe. Danny recognized the weight in those words. She had been doing this for a while, looking after the others when no adult would. How old are you? He asked. 14 cycles, and you're counting, maybe 12 years. 12 years old and already carrying responsibilities that would break most adults. Danny felt something twist in his chest. Where were you taken from? Blue was quiet for a long moment. Colony World, Outer Rim, raiders came, killed the adults who fought, took the children who did not. She paused. My parents fought. Danny did not ask what happened to them. He did not need to. The others. Blue looked at the sleeping children. Boulder is from a mining colony. His whole family was sold together, then separated at auction. He has not seen them since. She pointed at Pip, curled up in a ball on one of the beds. That one does not speak. Never has. We found it alone on the ship when we were loaded. Already there. Do not know where it came from. She went through each child. A pair of twins with pale gray skin who communicated only with each other. A young girl with feathers instead of hair who cried in her sleep. A boy with 4 arms who had not eaten properly, and so long his body had started consuming itself. 7 children, 7 broken stories. 7 reasons why Danny could not just hand them off to some station authority and walk away. What happens now? Blue asked. Danny sat down against the opposite wall, facing her. I don't know yet. The honest answer is I'm not sure where to take you. Stations will ask questions, file reports. You might get separated, sent back to places that don't exist anymore. We cannot go back, Blue said firmly. None of us. There is nothing to go back to. Danny understood that feeling better than Blue could know. He had spent 4 years running from his own past, from the memory of his crew, from the accident that had killed them, from the guilt of knowing it was his fault. I have an idea, Danny said slowly, but it's not a good one. Tell me. I know some places in the outer zones, hidden stations, communities that don't ask questions, people who left their old lives behind and built new ones. He paused. I could take you there, find families who might take you in, or at least a safe place to grow up. Blue considered this, and then I leave, go back to fixing ships. That's what I do. Blue studied his face with an intensity that made Danny uncomfortable. Children should not be this good at reading adults, but children who had survived what she survived learned fast. You are lonely, she said. It was not a question. Danny did not answer. The others like you, Blue continued. Pip followed you everywhere today. Boulder asked if you would come back. Even the twins watched you when you worked on the ship. I'm just the one who found you, Danny said. That's all. No, Blue shook her head. You are the first adult who did not hurt us, the first who gave without taking, the first who looked at us like people instead of cargo. Danny felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. He wanted to tell her that he was not special, that he was a burned-out mechanic with a dead crew and 4 years of guilt, that he could barely take care of himself, let alone 7 traumatized children. But Blue was looking at him with something that might have been hope. And after everything she had been through, Danny could not bring himself to crush it. Get some sleep, he said instead. I'll keep watch. Blue hesitated. For a moment, Danny thought she would argue. But exhaustion won out. She moved to one of the beds and curled up beside the feathered girl, who shifted in her sleep to make room. Danny sat in the doorway and watched over them. He had come to repair a ship, but somehow, somewhere along the way, he had started to repair something else, something he had thought was broken beyond fixing. Himself. The thought terrified him, but for the first time in 4 years, Danny did not run from it. 3 days into the journey, Danny realized he had made a mistake. Not a dangerous mistake, not a life-threatening mistake, just a simple miscalculation that anyone could have made. He had forgotten what it was like to not be alone. The children were everywhere. Pip followed him through every corridor, those huge eyes watching every move he made. Boulder insisted on helping carry heavy equipment, even though Danny told him to rest. The twins had discovered the ship's communication system and spent hours sending messages to each other from opposite ends of the vessel. The feathered girl, who Danny had learned was named Kira, had started singing softly when she thought no one was listening. And Blue was always there, translating, organizing, keeping the others calm. She had appointed herself Danny's assistant without asking permission. "Hand me the converter," Danny said, lying under a control panel with wires hanging around his face. A tool appeared in his hand before he finished the sentence. "Not the converter." "That's a calibrator," Danny said patiently. Blue frowned and switched tools. This time it was correct. "How do you know what everything is called?" she asked. "Practice, years of it." Danny connected the converter and felt the panel hum to life. "When I was your age, I couldn't tell a circuit from a capacitor." "What is a capacitor?" Danny smiled despite himself. "Something that stores energy, like a battery, but different." Blue processed this information with the same intensity she brought to everything. Danny had noticed that about her. She did not just listen, she absorbed. "Pip knows machines," Blue said suddenly. Danny slid out from under the panel. "What do you mean?" Blue pointed to where Pip was crouched near the navigation console, small paws pressed against the display. The creature was making soft, chirping sounds. "Pip cannot speak like us," Blue explained. "But Pip remembers everything, every number, every sequence. We discovered it on the trafficking ship. Pip memorized the guard schedules. That is how we knew when to try escape." Danny watched Pip for a moment. The creature's eyes were moving rapidly, tracking information on the display. "Pip," Danny said gently, "can you tell me what the navigation system is showing?" Pip looked at him, then at Blue. A rapid series of chirps followed. Blue translated. "Current course heading, distance to nearest station, fuel consumption rate, optimal speed for efficiency." She paused as Pip continued. "Engine temperature, hull integrity percentage, oxygen levels in all compartments." Danny stared at the small, furry creature with new respect. All of that from looking at the display for 30 seconds. Pip chirped again. Blue smiled slightly. "Pip says it was 22 seconds. The days that followed changed something in Danny. He had spent 4 years avoiding connection, avoiding anything that might make him feel responsible for another living being again. After his crew died, he had promised himself he would never put himself in that position again. But children do not care about promises made in grief. Boulder started helping with the heavy repairs. The stone-skinned boy was stronger than Danny and patient in a way that surprised him. He never complained about holding something in place for 20 minutes while Danny welded and reconnected and tested. When Danny thanked him, Boulder just nodded quietly and asked what came next. The twins discovered Danny's music collection in the wrench's computer system. For the first time since he found them, Danny heard them laugh. They danced to songs from Earth, twirling each other around the cargo bay while the other children watched. The four-armed boy, whose name Danny learned was Fen, had started eating properly. Color was returning to his skin. One evening, Danny found Fen using all 4 hands to braid Kira's feathers into an intricate pattern. Both children looked up when Danny entered, but they did not flinch. They did not hide. Progress slow but real. The nights were harder. Danny would hear crying from the crew quarters. Nightmares visited these children regularly, reminders of what they had survived. On those nights, Blue would be awake, moving between beds, whispering comfort in languages Danny did not understand. One night, Danny found her sitting alone in the corridor outside the quarters. Her scales had lost some of their color, a sign of exhaustion in her species, he had learned. "You can't take care of them all by yourself," Danny said, sitting beside her. "I have to. I am the oldest." "Being oldest doesn't mean being alone." Danny thought about his old crew, about the way they had shared burdens. "When I was in the military, I had a team, 6 people. We watched out for each other. No one person carried everything." Blue was quiet for a moment. What happened to them? The question hit Danny like a punch. He had not talked about his crew in 4 years, had not spoken their names, had not allowed himself to remember. "They died," he said finally, "because of a mistake I made." Blue turned to look at him. No judgment in her eyes, just understanding. "You blame yourself." "Yes. That is why you are alone." Danny nodded slowly. I thought if I didn't get close to anyone, I couldn't hurt anyone else. Blue considered this with the same seriousness she brought to learning about capacitors and converters. That is stupid, she said flatly. Despite everything, Danny laughed. A real laugh, one that surprised him with its warmth. You're probably right. I am definitely right. Blue's mouth curved into something that was almost a smile. Being alone does not protect you. It just means you suffer without help. Danny looked at this 12-year-old girl who had survived things no child should face, and he realized she understood something it had taken him 4 years to even approach. When did you get so wise? He asked. Blue shrugged. Pain teaches quickly. They sat together in the corridor for a while longer, two broken people keeping each other company in the dark. For the first time since losing his crew, Danny did not feel entirely alone. The alarm woke Danny from the first peaceful sleep he had experienced in weeks. Red light flooded the corridor as he scrambled from his makeshift bed in the engine room. 3 contacts on approach, fast, armed. Danny ran to the bridge where Pip was already at the navigation console, chirping frantically. Blue arrived seconds later, her scales pale with fear. What is it? Ships, 3 of them. Danny studied the sensor readings, his stomach dropping with each new piece of information. Same design as this vessel, same configuration. The traffickers had backup, and they had tracked their missing cargo. Blue translated for Pip, who chirped back. Rapidly, Pip says at our current speed they will reach us in 40 minutes. Their weapons' range extends further. We have 30 minutes before they can fire. 30 minutes. Danny's mind raced through options. The wrench was faster than the trafficking vessel but could not hold all the children. The trafficking vessel had weapons but not enough power to use them and maintain speed. Neither ship could outrun 3 military-grade pursuers. Can we hide? Blue asked. No asteroid fields nearby, no stations within range, no places to run. The other children had gathered at the bridge entrance. Boulder stood protectively in front of the smaller ones. The twins held hands, their gray faces identical masks of controlled terror. Kira had stopped singing. Fenn's 4 arms were wrapped around himself. These children had escaped once. They had fought and suffered and survived, and now the monsters were coming back for them. Danny refused to let that happen. I have an idea, he said slowly. It's dangerous, it probably won't work, but it's all I have. Blue translated for the others. They listened in silence. The wrench is small enough to be hard to target. This ship is big enough to draw attention. If I use the trafficking vessel as a decoy, set it on autopilot heading in one direction, we might be able to escape in my ship going another way. Will that work? Blue asked. Probably not. Their sensors are better than ours. They'll figure out the trick eventually. Danny pulled up star charts on the display, but it might buy us time to reach a jump point. Boulder rumbled something. Blue listened, then turned to Danny. Boulder says he will stay on the big ship, make it look real, move around so sensors pick up life signs. Absolutely not, Danny's voice was firm. No one stays behind. More discussion in languages Danny did not understand. The children were talking among themselves, debating. Finally, Blue spoke again. We do not separate ever. We learned that lesson already. She pointed at the display, but Pip has another idea. Pip scrambled to the navigation console and began entering calculations. Numbers scrolled across the screen faster than Danny could follow. Blue watched with the others, her expression shifting from confusion to surprise to something like hope. Pip says the 2 ships can be connected. Emergency tether. If we synchronize engines, both ships can jump together. Danny shook his head. That's not possible. The power requirements alone would. Pip chirped sharply, cutting him off. More numbers appeared on screen. Blue translated slowly, her voice filled with wonder. Pip has calculated the exact power distribution, route energy from life support on the trafficking ship, reduce gravity systems, shut down everything non-essential. Both engines fire at the same moment. The combined mass enters the jump point together. Danny stared at the calculations. They were elegant, they were brilliant, they were also completely insane. "This has never been done before," he said. "Pip knows," Blue replied, "but the numbers work. 25 minutes until weapons range." Danny made his decision. Everyone to the wrench, now. The next 15 minutes were chaos. Danny barked orders while running between ships, connecting emergency tethers, rerouting power systems. Boulder helped him secure the physical connections. Blue coordinated the children, making sure everyone was strapped in safely. Pip stayed at the navigation console, adjusting calculations in real time as Danny made changes to the system. The twins monitored communications, reporting each time the pursuing ships tried to contact them. The messages were threats at first, then promises, then more threats. Danny ignored them all. 10 minutes until weapons range. The ships were connected now, tethered together like mismatched siblings. Danny had shut down everything on the trafficking vessel except engines and basic structural integrity. The wrench was carrying more passengers than it was designed for, children pressed together in every available space. 5 minutes until weapons range. Danny reached the pilot seat of the wrench. His hands moved across controls he had used 1,000 times before. But this time was different. This time, the calculations had been made by a small furry creature who could not speak but remembered everything. "Pip, are we ready?" A chirp Blue translated. "Pip says yes, jump point in 60 seconds. 3 minutes until weapons range." The pursuing ships had figured out something was wrong. They accelerated, trying to close the gap before their prey could escape. Danny watched the distance shrink on his sensors. 2 minutes. "Danny," Blue's voice was calm, but her scales were nearly white. "The children want you to know something." "Not now, Blue." Now her tone left no room for argument. "They want you to know that whatever happens, you are the first good thing that happened to them in a long time. They want you to know they are grateful." 1 minute until weapons range. Danny felt something crack inside his chest. Not pain, something else. Something he had not felt in 4 years. "Hope. Tell them we're not dying today," Danny said. "Tell them I found them for a reason, and I don't plan on losing anyone else." Jump point reached. "Now, Pip." Danny fired the engines at the exact moment Pip indicated. Both ships lurched forward, the tethers straining against impossible forces. The navigation system screamed warnings. The hull groaned. For one terrible second, Danny was sure they had failed. Then the universe folded around them, and they jumped. Behind them, the pursuing ships arrived at empty space. Their cargo was gone. In the swirling chaos of the jump, Danny heard something unexpected. The children were cheering. The jump had worked. Both ships emerged into normal space, battered and drained, but intact. Danny spent the first hour just breathing, letting his heart rate return to normal while the children celebrated around him. They had landed in unknown territory. The star charts showed nothing familiar, no stations, no colonies, no traffic lanes. They were truly in the middle of nowhere. But they were alive, that was enough. The days that followed were spent on repairs. The emergency tethers had damaged both hulls during the jump. Power systems needed rebuilding. Life support required constant attention. Danny worked around the clock, sleeping only when his body refused to continue. He was not alone in the work. Blue had become his permanent assistant, learning quickly, asking intelligent questions, anticipating his needs before he voiced them. Boulder handled the heavy lifting without complaint. Pip monitored systems and flagged problems before they became emergencies. Even the smaller children helped in their own ways, bringing tools, keeping the workspace organized, making sure Danny ate and drank. It felt like having a crew again, different from before but no less real. On the 5th day, Danny's long-range sensors picked up a signal. Not a distress call, not a trap, something else entirely. A beacon broadcasting a simple message, all are welcome here. He followed it. The station appeared after 2 more days of careful travel. It was built into an asteroid, hidden and protected by the rock around it. Dozens of ships were docked along its surface, a mismatched collection of vessels from 100 different origins. A community of outcasts, refugees, people who had left their old lives behind. The station leader was a tall woman with silver hair and mechanical eyes that whirred softly when she focused. Her name was Rosa, and she had run this place for 15 years. "We don't ask about pasts here," Rosa explained as she showed Danny around. "We only care about futures, what you can contribute, what you need, whether you're willing to work alongside people different from yourself." Danny watched the station inhabitants going about their lives. Species he recognized and species he did not, all working together, trading, talking, living. Children ran through the corridors, laughing and playing. His children watched those other children with a hunger that broke Danny's heart. "I have 7 kids with me," Danny said carefully. "They've been through things no one should go through. They need safety, stability, a chance to be children again." Rosa studied him with those mechanical eyes. "And you, what do you need?" The question caught Danny off guard. He had spent so long focused on the children that he had not thought about himself. "I don't know anymore," he admitted. Rosa smiled slightly. "That's honest, at least. Tell you what, stay for a while, let the kids settle, figure out what you want." She gestured around the station. "We could use a good mechanic. Our current one is getting old and wants to retire." That night, Danny gathered the children in the small quarters Rosa had assigned them. 7 faces looked up at him, waiting, trusting, hoping. "I found a place," Danny said slowly. "A safe place. Good people here, they'll take care of you, find families for those who want them, let you grow up without looking over your shoulders." Blue translated for the others. The children listened in silence. And then, Blue asked, the same question she had asked days ago. Danny had prepared an answer. He was going to tell them he would leave, go back to his life on the wrench, fix ships across the galaxy, visit when he could. It was the responsible answer, the safe answer. But looking at their faces, Danny found he could not say it. "The station needs a mechanic," he said instead. "I was thinking about staying, if that's okay with you all." The reaction was immediate. Pip leaped onto Danny's chest, chirping wildly. Boulder made a sound that might have been a laugh. The twins rushed forward and grabbed Danny's hands. Kira started singing again, a bright melody that filled the small room. Fen wrapped all 4 arms around whoever was closest. Blue stood apart for a moment, watching. Then she walked over and put her hand on Danny's shoulder. "We were hoping you would say that." Months passed, the station became home. Danny set up his repair bay in a converted cargo hold. Within weeks, it was the busiest spot on the station. Word spread that the new mechanic could fix anything, and ships started arriving from neighboring systems just to use his services. He never worked alone. Blue became his official apprentice, learning everything he could teach her. She had a natural talent for systems work, an ability to see how pieces fit together that reminded Danny of his best engineers from the old days. She would be better than him someday, maybe soon. Pip lived in the repair bay, surrounded by screens and data displays. The creature had become the station's unofficial information system, tracking inventory, scheduling repairs, maintaining records with perfect accuracy. People came from all over to consult with the small, furry genius who communicated through chirps and translated through Blue. Boulder worked in the docking bay, helping ships connect safely and offloading cargo with gentle strength. The stone-skinned boy had found his place, and he smiled more now than Danny had thought possible. The twins became messengers, running communications between different sections of the station. Their laughter echoed through corridors that had once been silent. Kira sang. She sang for workers during long shifts. She sang for children in the station school. She sang for anyone who needed beauty in their day. Her voice had become one of the station's treasures. Fen had discovered a love of cooking. All 4 hands working in constant motion, he produced meals that brought people together. The station's communal dining hall was always full now. Danny watched them grow, watched them heal, watched them become the people they were meant to be before cruelty tried to break them. One evening, sitting in his repair bay after a long day of work, Danny looked around at the controlled chaos of his life. Tools everywhere, parts in various states of assembly. Blue studying technical manuals at a workbench, Pip dozing on a pile of soft rags, the sounds of the station filtering through the walls. Laughter, conversation, life. 4 years ago, Danny had lost his crew, lost his purpose, lost himself. He had run from his guilt, convinced he did not deserve connection, did not deserve family, did not deserve home. He had been wronged. A small hand tugged at his sleeve. One of the station's younger children, not one of his, but part of the larger community that had formed around them. "Mr. Danny, my mom's ship has a funny noise. Can you fix it?" Danny smiled and stood up. "Let's take a look," he said. He had come to repair a ship. He had found something he never expected. A crew, a family, a home. And finally, after all these years, he had found himself.